The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Welcome to Staring Into the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Mark Patrick Hicks.
Hello.
And Matt Brandenburg.
Check out these cool flies.
And we're all hyped up because we're talking about the motherfucking killer flies, which you can buy from Encyclopocalypse Publications with lots of editing errors.
Oh, gosh, I was thinking that for this episode, we should leave every error in.
Like that one part where it's 2 pages that are the same back to back.
So that happened to you guys too?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Last week, I probably was a little mean talking about the editing errors. And Mike, you had brought up a good point throughout the week that it's probably the transfer was bad.
It had to have been. Yeah. I know Rich said you can go buy it from Encyclopocalypse. You might want to hold off on that until we get into a little bit more in-depth here, because I think we're going to have some bones to pick about the typos and formatting issues in this release
of dialogue tags.
Yeah.
And all the J's. Did you guys have lots of J's, like random J's in your...
Yeah, there were random J's that popped up in the text for no apparent reason.
Yes.
It's fucking ridiculous. This book was a wild trip.
My first suggestion, and it was something else.
It was...
Yeah, Matt, what the fuck was this? This is your first pick for the show, and this is it? Like,
hey, the title alone is what sold me, and I was like, this should be fun.
$4 for some error-ridden mess from the 80s. Thanks so much.
It was kind of fun.
It was fun, but there's issues.
Yes.
I will say, for 80s killer bug books, The Nest is better.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, The Nest, you had a guy masturbating with leaves. You do not get that in Killer Flies. There is no fallen leaf masturbation.
Or what about like the 15 pages of just little kids being eaten by cockroaches described in graphic detail?
You cannot go wrong with that.
No, or cockroaches. I think there's a scene where the cockroaches climb up a guy's butt.
Yeah, that happened.
That happens.
That was a thing.
I think you sort of get that here, but I'm not entirely certain.
You get a guy getting killed by a fly drinking blood from his dick.
Yes.
Was there?
Yeah.
Oh, there's like a random scene.
I was going to say there doesn't seem to be as much genital death by killer bugs as there was in cockroaches.
I mean, not nearly enough.
There was more death in The Nest.
Yeah.
But
The Nest was a nice, savage little book.
Oh, yeah. Before we dive into Killer Flies, we kind of like to give a weekly rundown of recommendations. And I have a movie that you guys need to fucking watch. It is called Bloody Hell.
Bloody Hell?
Bloody Hell.
Is it British?
No, it is American. It is about this guy. The movie opens with a bank robbery. And this guy is like a civilian. And he takes an opportunity to get a gun and single-handedly stop the robbery. But his actions lead to the death of an innocent person. And he gets put behind bars for 8 years.
He was trying to stop the robbery, killed somebody. Yes. Okay.
And he ended up accidentally leading to the death of an innocent person. So he was prosecuted, and he was given a jail sentence for 8 years. He gets out of jail. He's happy to be free, but everyone just wants his attention because he's kind of like this celebrity now because he stopped a bank robbery. So people want his autographs. The paparazzi follow him around. and he's just like, fuck this shit. and when he was in jail, he had a map, and he spit spitballs at this map, and all the spitballs landed on Finland. So he has it as a sign where he needs to go to Finland. So he buys tickets to Helsinki to just get away from everything and try to start anew, where he gets kidnapped by a family of cannibals.
All right.
And the movie kind of takes off with him chained up in their basement with his foot cut off.
So this guy does not have very good luck from the sounds of it.
He does not.
Well, how did he meet this family?
They were scoping up people at the airport.
Oh, right at the airport.
Yeah. And so they were scoping up people at the airport, so they had everything set up by the time he landed in Finland.
Oh, so they knew he was coming?
Yeah. He was on the flight.
And so they had targeted him on purpose?
Yes.
Why?
They say something like, I think the son will like him the best.
Oh, weird.
Because like their son is kind of like this disgusting cannibal monster, and they try to find people to feed him.
So they're not all cannibals, or
they all are, but It's because of the son that like they're doing this a lot more.
I see. Man, that's
they're just doing it for their kids. It's okay then.
It's not a very good advertisement for Finland, though. I mean, you can't even get through the airport, and then you're captured.
Do they spell Helsinki with 2 L's?
That's Bloody Hell Part 2.
Yeah.
Bloody Helsinki.
The movie's a fucking wild ride. It is a lot of fun. It's really funny.
Nice.
It has some really good humor.
It's got 90% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, well, that's not bad, I guess.
It's got some really good humor. Like throughout the movie, the guy's talking to his own conscience. And like there's one part of the bank robbery where like it has a flashback to what he actually does during the bank robbery. And he's killed the other robbers. And he's down to the last robber. And the last robber's like, let me go, man. Let me go. You made a mistake. Just let me go. And his conscience is like, shoot him in the dick. Shoot him in the dick. And the guy's just like, come on, man. Just let me go. And then he shoots him in the dick. And his conscience is like, fuck yeah.
Conscience.
And yeah, the movie's pretty much mostly him trying to escape this family of cannibals that are trying to eat him. There's a really funny scene that's kind of early on where like there's a girl who's in the family who doesn't agree with what the family does. And she's trying to like take care of this man. And she gives his stump a little sponge bath to clean it off.
Aww.
And it plays this romantic piano ballad as she's like cleaning his stump.
Oh my God.
It was love at first stump.
The movie's tons of fun.
This always leads to cannibal questions for me. Do they only eat people from the airport, or do they get people from town, or do we not know?
It doesn't really say. The only thing that we get is like the brother of the oldest son of the family. He had a taste for flesh, like ever since he was a child. So they've been trying to like feed him to keep him like happy.
Well, but they're not shocked by that because they also eat human flesh, right?
Yeah, because they all eat it together.
Okay, but he's more hungrier than the rest.
Well, I don't think they weren't cannibals until him.
Oh, well, how do they figure that out?
Because he wouldn't eat anything if it wasn't human meat. And even when they were a child, he like would like bite their mother and like try to like eat her flesh.
That makes sense. All right, I get that. So is that all they eat?
Yeah.
They don't eat anything else?
I mean, it seems to be most of what they eat is people meat. Do
they eat vegetables?
Maybe.
Okay, just wondering.
You don't see them actually eat the meat.
It's just, these are I just, I mean, like they can't spend, it's like I've said before, they can't spend all their time trying to eat people. And even if they do eat people, I mean, like a diet of all meat is not good for your digestion. So
it sounds like that kid needed a Snickers.
Yeah. The movie's just, it's tons of fun. It's got some good gore. It's got some good action scenes. It's pretty tense, and it has a lot of humor in it.
It does sound amazing.
If you're a genre fan, I think you'll like it a lot.
What is it on?
Paid to rent it on Amazon. It was a $5 rental. I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely think you guys would like it. And if you enjoy kind of like horror thriller comedies, it is a wild ride, but it's tons of fun. I said that a lot, but it's just I was legit smiling this entire movie.
Is it more fun than Psycho Goreman?
No, but it's a different type of fun than Psycho Goreman is.
Gotcha.
Psycho Goreman is just like cheesy, where this isn't as cheesy, but it's still just gave me a big smile, just like Psycho Goreman did. So,
well, it makes sense that it's not cheesy because all they eat is human. Do you think they make cheese out of human? No, because humans don't. I mean, that gets into another whole topic of
that be
milking humans. So
head cheese. They could do.
I don't know.
Cheese.
I have nipples, Matt. Can you milk me?
A fair question.
So, Mike, what about you?
I mean, maybe you could make like cheese out of the blood. I don't know.
Blood cheese?
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works, Matt.
I don't know. I don't make cheese, so I couldn't tell
obviously
the properties of making cheese.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess it's my turn now. I have to go after that.
Did you read anything about making cheese?
No, I was mostly busy this week working on my new release, Friday Night Massacre, and getting the print edition ready. So that consumed a lot of my week. The only thing that I read is Killer Flies. And I watched the new episode of WandaVision, and that has been it for me.
Ooh, WandaVision's mad good, though. We just talked about that before we recorded.
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird because our last couple episodes have been WandaVision-centric. So
yeah,
we've become a WandaVision fan cast over the last couple weeks.
Right.
Pretty much. Well,
by the time this airs, people have forgotten what that show is. So.
I will say, Mike, that Friday Night Massacre is a really fun book.
Well, thank you.
And I'm excited for these reviews, especially the negative reviews. I'm looking forward to like how angry this book is going to make people.
I am too. I cannot wait for my first Trump reader to stumble across this book and leave me a review.
Right.
That is going to be a glorious 1-star bit of reading for me.
That is what I'm waiting for. It's just this barrage of 1-star reviews.
It's going to be hilarious. It's been out a few days. They haven't found it yet, but we got to give them some time. First, I guess, the Trump readers, they have to learn how to read first. So
yeah, it's true.
Unless you do like an audiobook.
Yeah, I don't know. Then they got to figure out how to like push buttons, and maybe they can train a chimp to do it for them. I don't know.
The chimp can listen to it and then relate the story back to them.
Yeah, I think so.
They could spell it out in feces.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There will be a lot of poop flinging in order to figure out how to tell this story.
I mean, that would be a great thing you could add to your stories if somebody could record that happening.
Sound of shit smacking on the wall.
Oh, God. One of them in the corner trying to make cheese.
Poor monkey.
God damn it, Matt.
I've always wanted a pet monkey. Like, I mean, I the way I look at it is I need something to smell stuff because, the house could fill with gas and I'd have no idea. And I figured a monkey could sit on my shoulder and slap me if there's gas around or something.
I don't think it works like that, Matt.
I'm going to make it work like that.
I definitely want to see a monkey smack you.
Yeah, I do too.
Check out our GoFundMe page.
Get a monkey to slap Matt. Then you could do part 2. I've always wanted to see, maybe I don't always want to, but I always imagined what it would be like to be bit by like a duck or a goose. So that could be part 2 of our GoFundMe.
You do not want to fuck around with geese.
No, I know. They're nasty and they're mean.
Oh, my God. They are very mean.
They are extremely mean.
I remember at work one day we had a bunch of geese on my work site, and I was giving them a wide berth. Another guy was trying to make fun of me for it. And then he got too close to the geese and they chased his ass off. And I had to tell him, that's why I stay the fuck away from the geese.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
They chased him across the entire quad. Like, they were not letting him go. They were out for blood.
They're vicious, dude.
Oh, they're killer.
For some reason, we have a park in town that has like some creeks in it, and the geese like love this. And so this is like a park for children, and there's geese everywhere. So as you can imagine, there's shit everywhere. But that's how we learned not to mess with geese, because they were just roam free, and they like own that park. And if you got too close,
they're very territorial.
Maybe somebody should write that book, Killer Geese.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know that I had any geese in mass hysteria, but I probably should have.
So, Matt, what about you?
Yes, I read Gwendolyn Kiste's Boneset and Feathers.
Very nice.
Yes.
I just got that from the Broken Eye Books Patreon. I need to start that soon.
It's nice.
So good. So it's funny because I think it was 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember who we had as a guest, but when we were talking about this, it was Jessica Guess. And we had brought up Boneset and Feathers and how I thought it hadn't come out yet, but it did. So I had to correct it by reading it and buying it. It is an amazing book. It deals with witches and witch finders and how evil they all are. And this main witch, Odette, she survived a witch burning, and the fire sort of like got into her, so nobody can touch her or they'll get burned. And so that kind of plays into this. And then there's a lot more happening. There's like these kind of ghost kids running around, and there's this magic part of the forest, and Odette loses time, and she usually wakes up and she's in a cemetery, or her hands are covered in dirt, so you don't know exactly what's happening. But yeah, this is an amazing book. Just everything she puts in there is, it's just very lyrical. The prose is just very nice and very detailed, and there's some really nasty scenes kind of getting closer to the end, and it just comes across very beautiful as bad things are happening to people. And this little world that she builds with these witches and these small villages, and then this witch finder group and their evilness, it was awesome. I was super excited to get it and to dig into it. And yeah, it's definitely worth grabbing if you haven't already.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it was awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
So I actually have a video game recommendation.
Ooh.
I picked up this game on Steam called Oromi, Oromi, and it's an indie RPG. They made it using RPG Maker. It's not a Japanese game, though, but it has, like, the RPG Maker Japanese RPG vibe thing going on. And it's kind of a cliche at this point, because, like, the old, let's make a horror game using RPG Maker. Only this is one of the few that's actually, like, really scary.
Huh.
So they did it well. But the game's weird. You play as a boy named Sunny, and Sunny has done something very bad. A few years ago, something very bad happened that involved Sunny and his friends, and ever since that event, Sunny has become a complete shut-in, and he's been riddled with anxiety, and all he does is lay in bed and sleep. And when he's asleep, he becomes someone named Oromi. And Oromi spends all day in a white room with a laptop, a light bulb, a cat, a sketchbook full of violent sketches, and that's it. And sometimes a door appears. And when he goes through the door, he enters his dream world, where all his friends are together again, and they're all happy, and everything is great. And slowly, his traumas relating to what happened years ago in the game begin to infiltrate his dream world. Huh. And then in his waking world, he is moving away in 3 days. And as the game, you can make a choice to spend these 3 days trying to reconnect with his old friends, or keep your character shut in his house. And the game will take 2 different paths depending on what you choose.
What path did you pick?
I picked the get together with your friends path because that's the canon path, and also if you don't do that, the game is significantly harder.
I see.
But if you don't do that, it unlocks a path that people have called the Hikikimori path. And she's like shut in pretty much.
Yeah.
And in that path, the game actually has more horror moments.
Huh.
And it unlocks like bonus bosses, but everything is like 5 times harder. So I'm going to replay that and see what that's like.
Nice. Yeah, it sounds kind of like the Underworld game.
It is like Underworld, but it's a lot darker than Underworld is.
Yeah, I imagine so, but I was thinking of the way you have to beat the game in certain ways.
Whenever you finish a part of the Dream Worlds, Omori goes back to the white room, and the door is gone, and then there's a knife in the room, and you have to make Omori stab himself to wake Sunny back up, like in reality.
Wow.
The game, I would say, it deals with issues of like depression, self-harm, suicide, and like severe anxiety. And it's pretty unsettling. Like the last 30 minutes, the last hour of that game, it turns into a complete horror game. And it was like some of the scariest things I think I've seen in a while. So, highly recommend. If you have $20, it's on Steam right now. They're working on getting it ported to PS4 and Nintendo Switch. But it is a really solid horror game. If you want something different, I recommend checking it out. Don't let the trailer fool you. The trailer makes it look all happy-go-lucky and fun. And the Dream World starts off super happy. It looks kind of like Earthbound. Everything's all colorful and happy and weird. And then, like, it slowly peels back, and it's like, oh, this is fucking, like, Trauma Worlds.
I mean, Earthbound can be kind of disturbing.
A little bit, yeah. Considering
the end, you're, like, basically aborting something.
That's true. But, yeah, though, this game, it pulls no punches. It goes all out at the end. When it reveals what happened, I was like, holy fucking shit. But there's also one part, this is a slight spoiler, when you're in the real world, your friend Kel, he's like this like happy-go-lucky carefree guy, and he doesn't seem like he's changed much from the Dream Worlds. And then you're kind of walking along with Kel, and then you come across Audrey, who's like Sunny's crush years ago before the incident happened. And Audrey's now a bully, and she's like with all these like new kids who are just mean and bullies, and you get into a fight with her, and it goes in like an RPG fight. And then when you attack her, you forget that Sunny has a knife, and the fight just stops. And Audrey's like, "You have a fucking knife, you psycho!"
Amazing.
And like the game really just it goes in crazy directions.
That sounds awesome.
But that's been it for my week. Unless you guys have anything else. If not, we can dive into Killer Flies.
I have one and a half things real quick.
Okay.
One and a half.
Well, the half one is I started Negative Space, but I know we're going to talk about that in a couple weeks.
Negative Space so far.
Man, I am digging it. It is the style that it's written in at first kind of threw me off. Not in a bad way, just it wasn't what I was expecting. And so it's kind of, I guess it's kind of an interview style.
I mean, not really. It's like it head hops a lot.
Yeah. And it calls out like each little section has like a name.
Yeah. So you know whose head you're in.
Yeah. And so it kind of jumps through all these people and they're sort of describing what has happened. So that took a second. But, I'm digging it. It's so dark already.
It's really fucking dark.
I'm like, what is happening? They're, like, doing these crazy drugs, and then one kid's got, like, a X-Acto blade, and he keeps cutting himself, and it's just, yeah.
Did you get to the first suicide?
Yes, I just got to that at the bowling alley.
Like, the shit going down his leg as, like, he's hung from under the bridge.
Yes, and I love it. It's sort of commentary because all these high school kids ran to go see this, and they all have their phones out taking pictures.
It's a really dark book.
So I'm excited to kind of keep going to that one, and I know we're going to discuss that later, so I won't go any further than that. The other thing is, this will be more music related, but John Carpenter's Lost Themes 3 came out this week. So
I listened to that earlier.
It's so good. It's probably, I mean, I like the first Lost Themes, and the second one I like too, but this one is just way above it. It sounds really good. It's just got a lot more of these creepy sounds, and he's definitely kind of, the best way for me to describe it is he's kind of moved past doing some of his older work, and this is all feels really fresh and kind of unique. Like I said, I love the first Lost Themes, but that did remind me a bit of him kind of tapping into what he's done in the past. So, like, not that they were all kind of similar sounding, but it seemed very much like Leftovers, where this one feels like it's absolutely brand new, and it's really creepy to snowblow in the snow and listening to this. So, so yes, it's super good. I've listened to it multiple times. It came out Friday, and I listened to it like probably 3 or 4 times already. So that's my music news for today. New John Carpenter.
All right. So Killer Flies is a book you can buy. We wouldn't recommend it until they fix the errors.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is not The Nest.
No.
But it is a book with words in it.
You know, looking at the history of Killer Flies, it seems like a title that's always been kind of chasing a wave of trends.
Yeah.
It was released in 1983 on the heels of other killer animal titles like Peter Benchley's Jaws. Yes. We had James Herbert's The Rats, Guy N. Smith's Killer Crabs, and as we were talking earlier, Gregory A. Douglas's The Nest. And Signet had this whole line of killer animal books that they were doing, and this was one of them. And now it has been out of print for almost 40 years and was recently re-released by Encyclopocalypse Publications. And you can't help but feel that it's just another attempt to cash in on the paperback from hell trend.
Yeah.
Try and get some of the money from those collectors who have been buying into Valancourt's reissues and have been hunting used bookstores for out-of-print titles that were featured in Grady Hendrix's paperbacks from hell.
I haven't read all the way through Paperbacks from Hell. Does this show up in that?
I don't know.
I read it, but I forget if this shows up in it or not. It's been a couple years.
And considering how little effort they put into proofreading this book to make sure that it was up to snuff to be reprinted, it just feels like an ultimate cash grab. It's just chasing another trend. This is out there because right now Paperbacks from Hell, those types of books from the 80s and late 70s are extraordinarily popular and reaching new audiences or people who had an interest in that stuff back in the 80s. That interest is being rekindled by nostalgia, and this is out there to try and attract those readers. And it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
I think they must have taken the original manuscript that was typewritten, no doubt,
and OCR'd it?
Yeah, they just ran it through a scanner and put it through an optical character reader, and it tried to digitize it as quickly and cheaply as possible without any of the legwork, without doing any of the normal editing and proofreading that you would otherwise do.
Yeah.
And that OCR is a mess. We have talked about this previously on the episode we had with Chad Lutsky talking about a Jack Ketchum story back in the day. And we had mentioned then, and it's a very popular comparison, is Stephen King's The Long Walk. That is another book that was just...
The anus line?
Yeah, that's another old book that was just ran through an OCR to get a digital edition for modern technology. And OCR can't distinguish lowercase letters like N and R's running together or U's. So you got in The Long Walk, this lady is giving her son a hug goodbye, but instead of wrapping her arms around his shoulders, the optical character reader thinks that R and M is an N and a U. So she ends up wrapping her anus around his shoulders to give him a hug goodbye. Well, you get that a lot in Killer Flies. Like barn, the word barn appears multiple times in one page.
Or Pammy and Tammy.
Yeah, each time barn appears as bam.
Yes.
Yep.
And burn comes across as bum.
Yes.
Which makes for some awkward reading when a fly attacks a burned man. He's got a burn on his arm, and all of a sudden they're coming out of his bum. Well, that's a heck of a migration to go from a burned arm to the guy's ass.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it could happen.
It could happen.
It could happen. I mean, as we saw in The Nest, stuff like that does happen when you have mutant killer bugs inside you.
So, Killer Flies is about genetically altered flies that were designed to kill fruit flies, but evolved from their original purpose and have begun targeting people en masse.
I will give them that, because I feel like that's sort of what's happened multiple times in real life, of them genetically altering something to kill another thing, and then not that whatever we create goes around killing everybody, but it has happened.
Yeah, there is a lot of that scientific meddling and unintended consequences of that.
This book decides to take it.
I mean, we've seen multiple times over human tampering that, we introduce an invasive species to fight off another invasive species, and instead of having two small problems, now we have one giant problem. It's like, okay, now all the trees are dying. We can't grow this shit anymore. This weed is eating up all of our crops.
Lake Michigan is full of Asian carp that destroy every other fish.
Yeah, and occasionally weird green fungus that starts growing across the surface, and you can't go into the lake anymore. Because we don't know what it is.
Yep. So this book is paper-thin characters.
Generously.
80s era racism.
Oh, yes. God. Yes.
And
super sexist.
Super sexist. And a super thin plot. I think my favorite is who is it? The governor.
Yeah.
Who's afraid to do anything because he wants to run for Senate.
Yeah. I was like, well, that's some commentary right there. It's like,
and there's just pages. No, nothing's going on. I'm trying to run for Senate.
Yeah.
We can't save Santa Fe. It'll cost me my Senate seat.
Oh, God. It's just, I mean
on that part, it's like, okay, 1983 is clearly not a hell of a lot different politically from 2021.
Yes.
It's like this governor would be a Republican QAnon supporter, and he'd be elected in no time.
He'd be right next to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah. He'd be out the Senate with his assault rifle on Facebook wanting to kill the Dems. And
I don't even know if he would do that.
Would be giving him a standing ovation.
This governor is so bumbling and stupid that he probably wouldn't know how to do that.
Okay, you're right. He would be more like Ted Cruz, I guess.
Yeah, yes.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
He's just a go-along dimwit. He's a useful idiot.
Yeah. I love when he actually calls in the military, and the military's just like, fuck it, we're going to kill everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's
scorched earth policy.
Yeah, and it's like, looking back at this, I think historically we have a very rosy, a clearly too rosy view of the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
And it's like, this book really is not shy about painting the government and military and police forces as being fascistic groups, organizations that clearly do not have anyone's best interest at heart but their own. They repeatedly assault journalists and destroy their equipment. There's a scene at the end which is basically a giant riot outside the governor's mansion that is just like the FBI and the military beating up civilians, these ranchers that have gathered demanding answers, and our two leads, Hutch and Sherry, get the shit kicked out of them by the suits, the federal suits. And they're painted as nobody until one of the governor's aides comes out and goes, "Oh, wait, they're with us." And like, "Oh, okay, you guys can go in now. Now that we've beaten the shit out of this guy, you're free to go now." And then you compare the reaction of how they're treated by the government and the governor's aides when the military general comes in, and like the aides are falling all over themselves to help the general open the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's just so, yeah. I love like one of the scenes. I think it was one of the aides. I don't know. After a while, there was a lot of names and I just,
yeah.
But one of them
I'm
like,
not going to lie. I skimmed this book.
He's like, we've been sitting in there for 5 hours and nothing has happened. I was like, what are you guys doing for 5 hours?
Filibustering.
Oh my God.
So we should make some semblance of the plot of this book for our audience, I guess.
Okay, first of all, Rich, it's called Killer Flies. Like,
true.
The
But we
flies.
haven't got to the opera scene.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very much a book that the title tells you everything you need to know about it and what it's about.
It's about flies eating people from their eyeballs and their penises and their vaginas and their
Eating horses,
children, and they're eating horses, and they're
cows.
eating everybody.
Opera singers are not safe.
But you know what their weakness is?
Sound.
Dubstep.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Oh man, that just was. As soon as we get to like, so it jumps like we kind of follow. Was it Pam? No, what's the lady's name?
Sherry
and Hutch, and then this other doctor a little bit later on, and Sherry and Hutch, they kind of keep bouncing around trying to figure out what's going on, and then interspersed are random one-off characters that are just there to get eaten, and then eventually they find the nest of the flies, and then there's a lot of back and forth. They go to the nest, or they go someplace, then they go back to the Capitol, then they go someplace, then they go back to the Capitol, then they go to a hotel, then they go back to the other place.
We forgot to mention they spray the flies with a chemical to kill them, and it just mutates the flies even more.
Yeah.
Two giant flies.
Yeah, so you get like this fly who's like 3 feet long and has a giant proboscis to better eat you with.
But they never 100% make it clear if it was the spraying that did that or if it's just a mutation. Because like they were kind of saying, like there's this doctor they meet about halfway through the book who actually made the flies, and he's like, well, they weren't designed to eat people and they're mutating and I don't know what's coming next. He does reference and says like, well, the spraying might change them. So I'm guessing it was a spray, but it's still left up to like, well, were these flies just being giant flies?
Even more confusing for me was the geography of this. Yes. So like they're in Santa Fe, the attacks are in Santa Fe, but then it's like a 4-hour drive to Los Alamos.
Yeah.
And Los Alamos gets attacked, and then they're back in Santa Fe.
Yep.
And then they find out that there's this abandoned town where the nest is, like way, way, way north. Yep. And somehow these flies are all able to be in different places. Like they act as a hive, but like they don't seem to have any difficulty teleporting from one town to another.
It's plot convenience, Mike.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how these guys are moving around. Like they're all living as a hive in this abandoned town way up north, but then they're also in Santa Fe. Yeah, it's like if we just wipe out this one area, that's going to solve our problem with these flies.
Yeah.
That can apparently travel hundreds and hundreds of miles in the span of a heartbeat.
Right. And then the fact that like it seems like Sherry and Hutch's ranch is by that abandoned town because they're like, well, if you're going to carpet bomb the north, that's all of our friends. And it's like, well, but wait, what?
Yeah, I don't even know where the fuck they are supposed to be geographically in this area.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't even know New Mexico's geography, so it all seemed plausible to me.
Yeah. Right. I kind of was just like, well, whatever. I mean, it's all, gobbledygook.
It's all
anyway.
French to me.
Yeah, I just had a lot of issues with that spatial distance and time that it would take these things. Because I don't know how fast flies move, but I don't think they can cover that much ground that quickly, round trip.
Because I feel like flies are always kind of having to eat, and they don't live for very long. So if flies have to always eat, and they're flying hours out of their way, either they're all going to die, or they're going to have to eventually kill out their feeding area, and then they're gonna have to move the nest. It just, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but I mean, you're probably at that point you're really over-examining things for killer flies.
I did find a review. I think it was on Goodreads where they were like, I don't know who wrote this review, but basically saying that the author did not study flies enough, that the everything that they talked about with these flies were wrong.
But they're genetically modified mutant flies. I mean, anything goes.
Like, these flies are like smart somehow. They like either they wait by doors or they like corral people. There's like
they trap people in the opera house.
Yes, they trap them in an opera house. There's a gas station, like truck stop scene where they're like waiting right outside the door, but they have some in there to kind of shoot people out of the door. It's just like,
yeah, this book's ridiculous.
I will say that for all of the flaws and plot holes it has, it does have that really good bad B movie aesthetic.
Yes.
Yeah.
This 100%. Is the type of book that, as I'm reading it, I can see the cheap film stock and the grain of that film, and
I can see the boom mic popping in.
Yeah.
I mean, and the dialogue is perfect for that kind of B movie stuff.
Oh my! It's so portentous.
Dialogue's so bad.
I loved that part where it's like, we got to get to the governor and tell him, otherwise the only thing he'll be governing is a graveyard.
Or just the fact that out of everything that's happening, and these books always kind of have it, where it's just like 3 or 4 people that are going to stop this like apocalypse, and everyone else is stupid. And it's just so funny that it's just these 4 random people doing everything.
Well, I like that with the doctor who created these things, this Robert Fonseca. He enters the picture and, he's trying to tell the government, look, I made these things. This is how we stop. He's like, you're an idiot. Yeah. I'm running for the Senate and we can't do this. We're going to spray them. No. Spraying is only going to make it worse. What do you know? I mean, like, I made them. I think I kind of know.
Like, listen here, you dum-dum. We're going to do it like this and it'll be fine.
This is the kind of book, like, a line like, look at here, dum-dum, would not have been out of place dialogue-wise.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The other thing that fits perfectly for those movies and the time is that every single character, except maybe our 2 main characters, are either racist or very rapey.
I love the early on, it's like chapter 4, I think, when like it's the couple having sex that are killed by the flies. Yes. And like the guy's like, let's go again, and she's like, we've already had sex once today, and he's like, I don't fucking care.
And she's all like, well, he's gonna leave me if I don't do this. It's like, what is happening? Or like even talking about the first time they spray, the pilot's all like, I don't even know if I can't remember if he's racist or he just hates everybody.
God, yes, that was
he just wants to kill.
Bad, where he's like, he has like a Vietnam flashback and he can pretend all the flies are Vietnamese that he can kill.
Yes. He's like, it'll remind me of back in Nam killing. At least I can get up close and see it this time. Like, what's happening?
With some very coarse off-color slurs of...
Yeah.
Like, or even like the book opens on this guy driving the flies, just like in a pickup truck, because you got these crazy flies. It's safe.
Oh, thinking about his lover Juanita.
Yes, he's like, well, I love her, and I found her when we were at a bar getting ready to fight a bunch of people. It was just
he was trying to, and I quote, Mex bait. Yeah. Because he wanted to fight some Hispanic guys.
Yeah.
And then he sees Juanita and falls in love with her.
Oh God! And
now he's just fantasizing about getting to her so she can spread those brown legs.
Yeah. This is the third paragraph of the book, by the way.
Oh.
So just going to point that out there.
Just opens right up. As soon as I started reading this, I was like, oh no. What have I gotten into?
Yeah, like chapter 1, we're, quote, mex baiting, and then you got this Vietnam guy with his very coarse descriptions of Vietnamese citizens and
or the opera singer who checks out all the women, and he's like, I always like the understudies because then we can study one-on-one.
Yeah, at the hotel room. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And like right before that, we get a scene of the two understudies, and one of them's like, oh, I'm so excited to like learn under this master, and I can't wait, and all this stuff. And then it jumps to the opera singer. He's like, ooh, that blonde girl, I can't wait to get her alone. And it's just like, dude. So either this author like hates everybody, or this author's just around all these rapey people and is like, this is the way normal people talk.
Well, we'll get into that. There's some background information on this author that I think is pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys are aware.
Did research today.
I did do some research on this.
I did.
I'm curious. What do we know about this author, Mike?
Well, Mark Kendall is a pseudonym that was only used one time. The author who wrote Killer Flies under the Mark Kendall pseudonym is Melinda Snodgrass.
Really?
And her name may be familiar because she helped develop Wild Cards with George R.R. Martin.
Huh. Actually, I know Melinda Snodgrass's stuff, I'm not going to lie.
And she worked on the second and third seasons as story editor for Star Trek The Next Generation. Her script for the second season episode, The Measure of a Man, has been widely cited as one of the best episodes of that series. Entertainment Weekly called it the first truly great episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And I mean, that it's been nominated for awards. It has played in museums. So, I mean, she has a pretty big resume. She's done a lot of work in Hollywood. She was tapped by an editor friend at Signet who was working on their killer animal horror line, and she had bills to pay, and she took this job writing this book in the style of those other male horror writers that were producing these kind of paperback horror thrillers at that time.
So it's kind of like a parody of those horror thrillers in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes some ways, sense.
So, okay.
She's trying to ape that style with the overly portentous cliffhangers, the melodramatic dialogue, the really bad men writing women cringe moments.
Yeah.
Which we get early on where Sherry discovers that her daughter, who we know has been eaten by the killer flies, she returns home with Hutch and finds her daughter is missing, which as a male author writing a book called Killer Flies would be the perfect time to let us know how angry Sherry's breasts are. As Sherry is frantically searching the house for her daughter, we get this line: her breasts beneath the thin material of her blouse rose and fell with fear and anger. So, at this scene of rising tension and horror and trauma for this woman, let's take a pause and focus on how her breasts are reacting to this news.
Yeah. Honestly, this makes me look at the book in a whole different way now.
Yeah. It does.
I did not know that. And that it's tough because it is on the surface. And like we said, not knowing this, you're like, this is a lot of cringeworthy discussion topic and everything like that. But you're right. She kind of feels like she's satirizing all of that.
Yeah, on one hand, it almost feels like a parody. On the other hand, when you take a look at her biography and her official website, no mention of Mark Kendall and Killer Flies is ever made.
Makes sense.
Even though in her biography, she does talk about her other pen names, like She writes under Filipa Bornikova for one of her series. So she isn't shy about hiding her other pen names, but it doesn't seem like there's any reference to Mark Kendall anywhere, which I kind of wonder how much of this is like an embarrassment, cringe moment of her past that...
I think this is a book she wrote for the Bills.
Oh, it completely was.
Because it's a book she wrote for the Bills, she just doesn't really care about it.
Yeah.
About the author, then, is very interesting because it's got a whole thing happening in this about the author. I mean, I'll read it real quick because it's very short. But
he was born in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yep, 1942, cultural anthropologist. He is a crack shot and an expert horseman who flew medical supplies in Biafra during the Nigerian Civil War. So, did she just make that all up?
Oh, yeah. Melinda Snodgrass is an author from Santa Fe. She was originally a lawyer who got sick of law and found that she liked writing much more. And she started working with George R.R. Martin, and she was advised to send in a spec script to Star Trek. And during the writer's strike, they ended up selecting her episode to purchase and film. And then that led to her getting work as a story editor for the show. And then she's been doing Hollywood stuff pretty much ever since, alongside writing under Melinda Snodgrass under her name and as Filipa Bornikova.
Huh. Well, that does make this story a little different.
Yeah, it puts an interesting spin on it. Because there is a very, very much a lot of bad 80s male author in this book.
Yeah.
Like, she is very clearly aping a very particular style and mimicking how these other books were being written.
I will say, even if she was sort of doing a parody, there is a very deep, distrust of Hispanic people in this. So,
yeah. The corrupt cop, the
corrupt cop, the whole town that is all driving like lowriders and stuff like that.
I think the governor, is he Mexican American also?
No, his wife is.
Okay, I thought he might have been Hispanic.
No, I think it was his wife, because there's some comments about that in there too. So even if you're, say, satirizing this stuff.
There's still.
The opinion is still in there, and it doesn't feel like that was all, fake.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
I know, there is.
If you do that much of it, it starts to feel like you're thinking these things.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot of very casual racism, a lot of misogyny, a lot of sexism.
Yes, because all of our heroes are not Hispanic.
Quote unquote heroes.
Yes, we'll put yes, fair.
If we look at Hutch, I mean, he is a very 1980s view of masculinity, right? He's got that Marlboro Man, Tom Selleck kind of cut. He's got that iron jaw. He's a very manly man.
He doesn't cry.
No. But to show how masculine he is, Sherry, while grieving over the death of her daughter, he's checking out the nurses' asses at the hospital.
Yeah.
And when she gets too emotional later on, after they have had a near-death run-in with the killer flies and have just barely escaped with the skin of their teeth, she gets a little hysterical, so he smacks her and starts screaming in her face.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, from that point forward, he is very open with being an abuser. That is not the first and only time he smacks her around and yells at her.
Not at all.
There was a number of that in there. I was like, wait, is this happening?
And we're told multiple times from both their perspectives that this is love. Okay?
Yes. Well, and then
Sherry
just can't decide. Yeah.
So she loves Hutch so much, she ends up fucking Dr. Robert Fonseca when he leaves the hotel room.
Yep.
As soon as he leaves to go get them food.
Well, he's going to get the sound equipment so they can set up the killer organ at the church to destroy the flies. And, like, as soon as that door shuts, like, her and the doctor are tearing each other's clothes off and just going to town.
The doctor's making that macaroni sound.
And, like, he's, like, right from the start, like, he has them both come to his very fancy bachelor pad and and gives her, like, this really skimpy see-through
robe.
And then waits for her outside, like, maybe not waiting for her, but she's out there and he's out there, and he's like, I just can't. You're so strong. You're not like any of the other women I've seen, and
he
I just
comes up behind her, doesn't he?
Yeah, he grabs her.
Yeah.
And kisses her.
Yeah.
And in her mind, she's like, well, this is a kiss of an experienced man.
And he's got, like, women's clothes all stocked up and ready to go from all the women he has over.
They make him sound very, he's quite the Casanova as a scientist.
Very much an 80s playboy.
Yeah, scientist working on flies. It's not like he's got like a glamorous like job, but whatever it is, he can get the ladies.
Like, hey, baby, want to see my proboscis?
God. And even like it goes through and like we get so much of like Sherry trying to determine who she likes more, and she's like, well, I can love both of them as just as much.
Yeah. It's like one is either an abusive ranch hand or one is a Casanova scientist. It's so hard to decide who to go with. Should I stick with the guy who has clearly been very open with his affections? Maybe infections. You know, it's that OCR character reader. I misspoke there. Like, Robert is not shy about hiding his interest in front of her other man,
right? And they even like talk about that, and that's interesting and makes me wonder what she was trying to say with that, because Hutch is like, I can't be mad at him. He's like a brother. It's okay that he loves the I loved. Like, hell, they don't even like they talk about she was married and then her husband died from cancer, and like we get into like Hutch's head and he's like, man, I've been interested in her for years, and I just couldn't do anything about it. And it's just like, dude. I mean, I guess you waited long enough. 2 years is probably long enough, but still.
I mean, hell, she only waited like an hour after her daughter died to start banging Hutch. So
God.
There is just so much weird insta-love between all of these characters. Like, I get to the end of that with Hutch, and he's talking about Robert, like, oh, I love him like a brother. And it's like, you've met this guy like 4 times. You've only shared page space with this guy in 4 scenes. Like, there is.
You went back to the hotel room, and they acted awkward.
Yeah, there is no sense of actual relationship between Hutch and the Robert to feel like they're brothers, let alone.
No.
And the other thing I thought was funny is that Sherry, I believe, showered with both of them separately.
Oh, yeah.
Which it's just like, come on. Unless you have like a big enough shower that has like 2 shower heads, that just does not work.
I know. I'm kind of jealous that they have that kind of space. I wish I had enough shower space for that.
But
it's just an unrealistic fantasy.
So
I mean, we try it, and it's like we're knocking over shampoo bottles, stuff is flying all over. It's like I could never get enough water. Like, I'm covered in suds. Like, come on.
You're like, I'm just cold and waiting.
Yeah. It's like, would you just wash your hair already? Come on.
But
just let me know when you're done. I'll just shower later, okay? Just let me know when you're done.
In this book, it's a magical moment. And it's funny. It feels like every once in a while she or he, they forgot like that there were killer flies in this book. And so then they would have to bring them back real quick. Because, I mean, like the last half of the book, the flies maybe show up a couple times, but like not nearly as detailed as it did in the beginning. I think there is an attack, I think, on Santa Fe, which we don't even see all we see is the aftermath, and not even that much. There's like one or two bodies in the on the sidewalk, and then they're like, well, everyone must be hiding. Which
they killed the ducks.
Yeah. Which like doesn't work because they've proved earlier that like these flies can like somehow get it. Like, I mean, they're flies. Flies can always get into houses, but like a mass of flies can get into these houses.
Yeah.
So it's just so crazy. And then, yeah, the opera scene, that's where it feels like it's pointless, but there's literally like a line where they're like, well, the flies start buzzing around drunkenly when they hear the music. And it's like that, I guess, is enough to let us know that later on this organ will kill them all.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were exploring this town and just randomly found a church organ that's been abandoned for decades and still plays music.
And of course the doctor knows how to play because
of course he was studying to be a scientist and learned about another scientist who was an organ player, so he had to become proficient in learning about organs and organ repair
between sleeping with all those ladies.
Yeah,
because those are the two sexiest things you can do: play a church organ and be a scientist with flies.
Hey lady, want to come see me fiddle with my organ?
you know what this book was missing?
A plot?
Yeah. Yes, that and drugs.
Characters?
I am surprised they didn't have drugs in this.
Like those kids in the nest were like
yes, like the three like hippie punk kids.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's pornos with deeper plots than killer flies.
Yeah, this book, I will say, this book was a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
But I found the edits and typos to be really frustrating.
Oh my god, that was so frustrating.
So I meant to ask earlier, with like OCR, you can go back through and make edits, right?
I would imagine.
Like once that's done, it's not like it's set in stone. I mean, I'm assuming
I think a lot of people do the OCR and then they just publish it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can edit it.
I think they figure out, it's already been edited back in 1983. What could go wrong with running it through a scanner for a 40-year-old manuscript and just run it through?
But as we can see, I mean, there's literally like 2 pages that are repeated.
And then you get sentences like, she willed Jay the.
Yes.
Whispered a small J voice.
Yep.
I know we talked a little earlier about like Paperbacks from Hell and them kind of doing this. And I appreciate that other publishers are trying to do this. I looked through their website and it does look like they're doing more of taking these older books and trying to bring them back, and it looks like they're doing novelizations too, though I feel like a lot of those are kind of newer novelizations for older movies. So I appreciate that. We're people digging back into that old time. And we've discussed this in previous podcasts of getting the older stuff out now. But it sucks that they didn't take the time to go back through it because it's really hard. I bought Wishmaster and I'm like half and half excited to read it. I'm worried that it's going to be like this, where it's just going to be a bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, well, it really hurts your faith in like this publisher or any publisher leaving a book that unpolished.
I mean, it would have taken time, but
you would have caught it.
It wouldn't have taken that much time. This is not an insurmountable task to go through the final PDF or the Word document and go, okay, well, we can delete this random J that appears for no reason.
Yeah, it's like 180 pages.
Yeah. My Kindle edition's at 146, so it's not like this is War and Peace, Yeah.
Take a week to go through it and edit some of this stuff out and read the sentences. Because, bum, barn, burn, those aren't all the same in the context of the sentence.
No, they're all very different words. It threw me off so much the first time when, like, Sherry goes into the BAM. It's like, what? It's like, oh, that's supposed to be barn. Yeah. And then it shows up like 3 more times on that page where now that she's in the BAM, she reached for a phone on the BAM post. Like,
oh, God.
What the fuck is going on?
I repeatedly had to stop and read it out loud and just be like, listen to this. This this book. It really happened.
And then there are moments where you have dialogue, description, dialogue of a different person.
Yes.
So you got dialogue A from Sherry. Let's say you got Sherry or Shelley, whatever the fuck her name is. You got Shelley's dialogue, a description, and then Robert Fonseca's dialogue. But instead of having them all on different lines like a normal editing would, a normal formatting job would have that, it all comes up on the same page, on the same paragraph.
Yes.
And there's no way to tell if what Robert is saying is his dialogue or if it's Sherry continuing her thought.
Yes.
And you get a bit discombobulated with that, where you don't know who's talking until the end of the paragraph. It's like, oh, this was supposed to be a line break here.
Yeah. You know, like talking about imagining this as like a B movie, you can imagine some books kind of like a Grindhouse, or where these things are intentional, like flubbed lines and weird edit choices and missing scenes. That's all a choice. But in this case, it's more like those really bad straight to VHS movies that clearly see the camera lens, like the lens cover. You can see the boom mic. You can see people clearly missing lines or sound dropping out. And so those types of movies
with improper lighting.
Yes, where it just after a while it gets kind of annoying. It's like, did anyone take the time to look at this?
This is very much a book that if it were a movie, it would be a VHS tape where you have to constantly fiddle with the tracking.
Yes.
It's
the
just
contrast.
So, yeah.
You know, and I feel bad disparaging the publisher. I appreciate that they're doing this. And again, I do have Wishmaster. Maybe I'll read it and see. Maybe that's different. The newer stuff could be good, but it's such a bummer that they didn't take the time.
Yeah. I mean, I do appreciate that these older titles are getting a second chance. But when you're putting this stuff out, I don't care if you're a major publisher, if you're a small press, if you're an indie, you have to take the time and do it right.
Yes.
You have to proofread. That's not an option. You have to edit. That is not an option. Yeah. These are the bare minimum requirements of publishing a book.
And the fact that, like, these books are coming out unedited hurts the whole view of indie books.
Especially if you're using an OCR. If you're using an optical character reader to bring back these old books, you're introducing new technology that is introducing new errors that were not there previously.
Yep.
You have to give these a second look.
Yeah. I wonder how Melinda Snodgrass feels about this.
Considering she has no mention of it on her webpage, and I think she just kind of forgot all about this book until a new contract came her way. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll take the $50. You can have this book.
Right. She got the like royalty check from the three of us, and she was like, I don't even remember this.
Right. She's like, look, I'm making the Wild Cards movie at Universal. You do what you want with this. I don't just leave me out of it. Yeah.
Well,
send me a contract. You can do what you want.
I will say, if you have a hankering for a Paperbacks from Hell book, don't read this one.
Yeah.
If you have read the other ones and you still want more, give this one a shot.
Yes.
Yeah, you've already burned your way through Valancourt's Paperback from Hell editions and still need some more. This book, it does have a certain charm.
Yeah.
If you can overlook the rampant casual racism, the sexism, the misogyny. Yes. If you can overlook a lot of the problematic elements in this book and just kind of take it for being pulpy, cheesy B entertainment from the 80s, and you know what you're getting into, there is a certain charm to it. That's not to say it's a really good book. But, I mean, 150 pages, if you spend 2 or 3 days with this, it's not bad. There's certainly better things you could read. There's worse things you could read. But I would say until they've made it clear that they've corrected the issues with this manuscript for print and digital and have actually put in the work of showing that they have the credibility of a major publisher, or just even a minor publisher. They've just done the basic bare minimum work. Go for it.
I mean,
but don't expect a stellar 5-star read. This isn't great literature. This is not a lost horror classic.
No,
it's just a lost horror book.
This book is part of the 80s horror implosion, where there was just so much shit that, it was hard to find the good shit from the bad shit.
Yeah.
And you were just buying everything.
It follows the Jaws concept to a bit. But
I mean, it basically has the exact same plotting as The Nest.
Yes.
It follows that trope seamlessly. It has the exact same outline.
Yes. And it even has a dump.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but they both have dumps in them.
And The Nest is better.
Yes. The Nest is so much better. For one thing, they figured out a way to contain that by having it happen on an island, where this one is very difficult to comprehend how these flies know to stay within the state border.
It's like they're able to traverse Santa Fe and New Mexico without any issue. Why can't they go and leave the borders? Why isn't this a larger risk? You're bringing in the Air Force.
Yeah, bringing in the geography, the only reference to this small town is that it's like the northern part of New Mexico, which means it's very close to Utah. So why isn't it happening there? Why are they staying in this little square of space?
Okay, so Utah has a large Mormon population.
And the flies are...
The Mormons wear magic underwear, and I think the magic underwear is able to repel the killer flies, and that's why they don't go to Utah.
I knew that's where you're going to go with that, Mike.
They're not from whatever... Since they're all from the planet, whatever planet that they're from, then the flies can't go to them.
Yeah. Look, Joseph Smith made a pact with the flies.
Yes.
John Joseph Smith stared into the abyss. And that's where he found out about the second coming of Jesus Christ.
And the killer flies.
And this is why we are now a tax-free entertainment podcast.
Well, speaking of
Mormons!
Speaking of tax-free, if you want to help out the abyss in establishing us as a nationwide movement, you can subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, make sure we spread that abyss around.
Yes.
And Mike, where can listeners get in touch with you?
They can find me on Twitter at MikeH5856, or they can go to my website, Michael Patrick Hicks, or look me up on Amazon and buy some books.
Yes. Yeah. Especially the new one. Buy the new one.
Friday Night Massacre.
And Matt, what about you?
I am also on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
You can follow
and don't forget to contribute to Matt's Spanking Monkey GoFundMe.
We'll get the GoFundMe up right now. And man. you can follow me at Rudy53088, and be sure to follow the Abyss at Into Staring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying, keep staring.
Hey you, knucklehead with the earbuds. Yeah, you. You are listening to the Mondo Method podcast with authors Armand Rosamilia and Chet Buddha. Come on in and join Don Mondo and his right-hand man, Chuck the Buddha, at their diner table for another gathering of the Mondo Mafia.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.